Hello. Today we're going to read chapter 2 of Illusions. And you get to meet Elizabeth's sister, Katherine, now that she's separated from Elizabeth's body, and Thomas. Thomas Newton hurried home. His wife's voice had sounded strange over the phone, as if she were crying. She rarely cried that Thomas knew. Walking in the front door, he found Katherine in the bedroom, packing their bags, crying. Thomas stopped her and turned her toward him. "Katherine, what is it? Come here. Talk with me, dear." Thomas sat in the armchair placed in their bedroom. He pulled Katherine onto his lap. Katherine wept into his shoulder, and he allowed her tears to fall until they subsided. "Elizabeth has returned, but she is injured. Bridget called. We need to go." Katherine's blue eyes met Thomas's rich brown eyes, and he understood. Thomas stroked her hair, soothing his wife. He loved Katherine's dark hair, pale skin, and blue eyes. Her pale Irish coloring contrasted with his dark African skin and hair, and he could not love her more. He lovingly traced the freckles on her nose, drawing her gaze back to his own. "Why are you weeping? Elizabeth is home. We will go and sing together to help her heal." Katherine burst into tears anew, much to Thomas's dismay. "I don't know why I'm crying. I'm happy Elizabeth is home." Understanding dawned on Thomas. For 10 years he had watched Katherine keep a stiff upper lip. She never discussed Elizabeth unless she felt prepared, and although Katherine never said the words, Thomas knew Katherine felt Elizabeth's absence from their wedding keenly. Settling Katherine better on his lap, he rubbed her back and calmed his wife. 5 years of friendship had finally led to Katherine confessing some secrets to Thomas, secrets that had broken his heart for her. Thomas had held her, a feat that had taken 3 years to achieve. However, once she knew she could trust Thomas, Katherine had given hugs and laying a hand on his own with greater ease. He had worked up the courage to ask her on a date 6 months later, and they had gone slowly, taking their time, while Katherine became comfortable with the idea of loving Thomas. He knew the struggles they faced even now bothered her greatly. Thomas hoped with Elizabeth home, some of that inner struggle Katherine battled might ease. Thomas prayed for wisdom, kindness, and grace as Katherine let go of 10 years of tears. Finally, Katherine calmed, and Thomas smiled down at his wife, who at this moment looked small and vulnerable despite her tall, willowy frame. "I love you, Katherine Ann Newton. I love your heart, and that you try to help others even while battling your demons." Katherine sniffled and hiccuped. Thomas chuckled. He held her in his arms and stood before setting her down, taking her hand. Thomas led her into the bathroom, took a washcloth, and carefully wiped her tear-streaked face. "Shall we see how soon we might find a train to New York?" Katherine beamed at him and nodded, unable to speak just yet. She let her eyes lovingly caress Thomas's face, and she stood on her tiptoes and kissed him, letting her actions speak words she could not convey. Katherine, like Elizabeth, had few words to speak unless they flowed from her. However, her actions often showed Thomas how she felt. Thomas stroked her cheek, kissed her tenderly on the mouth, and went to his study to make the necessary phone calls to arrange for their absence. Katherine went to the kitchen, started tea, and caught her breath. Katherine quickly took inventory of the refrigerator contents. She wrote a hasty note for their housekeeper, Mary Ann, to feel free to take any of the food she knew her family could use with her. Katherine had run to the bank and withdrawn the necessary money. She had accomplished much before Thomas came home. Katherine had done well until packing when things slowed, and the tears she had held back for 10 years overwhelmed her. Elizabeth was home now. How she had missed her twin. Katherine felt certain Elizabeth had left in part because looking in the mirror felt strange. For 10 years, Katherine struggled every time she looked in the mirror and found only herself looking back at her. She had spent 25 years residing in Elizabeth's body, and it had been a time of quiet, a time to draw on God's strength, and a time to grow spiritually. Thomas had been so kind, so patient, so loving. Maybe someday they could fully become husband and wife. It had taken a year before she could sleep with him in the bed beside her, and things had only just recently become a little more amorous as they kissed. Thomas never pushed and never made her feel ashamed, because the thought of being intimate hit her and she wanted to run and scream. Oh God, heal me so I can be a good wife to Thomas, even though I cannot give him children. Katherine heard a soft amen behind her and turned to see Thomas leaning against the door frame. She shut off the stove and stopped making tea. We can leave first thing tomorrow morning. I got us a sleeper car so you can be comfortable. Shall we do some Christmas shopping tonight and eat a nice dinner out, then come home to finish packing? Katherine took 3 strides and kissed Thomas fully on the lips. His arms wrapped carefully around her, and she met his eyes as she stood on her tiptoes. I am so blessed. That sounds like a lovely idea. We may need a steamer trunk or two to help us carry all the gifts. Should we stop at the bookstore first? Thomas smiled broadly. Katherine knew Elizabeth loved books, and he suspected they may need 3 trunks more before they left tomorrow. 3 trunks before they left tomorrow, and 3 more for the trip home. He helped Katherine into her coat and took his wife out for shopping, dinner, and a bit of much-needed frivolity. And that is chapter 2 of Illusions. You can find Illusions on Amazon. It's available on Kindle and in paperback. Have a good day.